Welcome in to Rover Sports, and this is the afternoon edition of the podcast today. We are going to be breaking down the entire landscape of the NFL. We are going to be breaking down each and every game from yesterday, reading over stat lines. But on this show, what I like to do is I like to reflect on the entirety of the games yesterday. I like to reflect, and I have an hour of time to just reflect on the landscape of each team in the NFL, where they are going, what their problems are, where they can address issues, and what they are doing really well. So we can dissect each program and each team by their opening game, and I hope you guys enjoy this. You can find my podcast also on iTunes under Rover Sports. If you'd even leave a 5-star review, it would help garner attention for the podcast. So what I'm going to do now with my headphones, I'm going to tilt them kind of to the side, and eventually they might come off at certain points of the podcast when I really enter into my comfort zone of speaking. So, going to put the headphones like this, less restriction on my head, but also I can still kind of hear the microphone, and I could kind of still hear what I need to hear to continue with the performance of the podcast. So, with the opening game of the NFL in Week 6, the opening game was a Thursday night game, and I'm trying to recall whether it was a good game or not. It was the New York Giants playing the New England Patriots at night. Now, where I was specifically during this time, since it is going to be kind of a podcast about myself, so that's why I'm going to be talking about myself, I do play in a flag football league on Thursday nights, and my team is struggling in flag football. I'm about 1-4 as a starting quarterback in that league, and it's a very challenging league, and being 5'10", it's not easy to see over defenders. It's not easy to play in that league at all. And I was going to cancel before the season. I was going to cancel this date of playing in this league because I was going to take an off week to watch the New York Giants play the New England Patriots, since the Giants are my childhood team. The Giants are the team that I grew up with. My grandfather, who I am named for, he was a Giants season ticket holder. He's a diehard Giants fan. And I know that the camera's over there. I'm just trying to continue this podcast. So I'm having a lot of trouble playing quarterback. We got off to a great start week 1, and I didn't play well again, just throwing way too many interceptions, getting in the 4th and long situations, and it's tough to find receivers. But the moral of the story is that the Giants are my team. I love the Giants so much, and seeing Daniel Jones go to Foxborough should be really exciting. It should be a reason to miss your intramural flag football league. It should be a valid excuse to watch your favorite team in all of sports, the New York Giants, play. Should be a very valid reason, but I just had zero faith that the Giants were even going to be competitive. I had zero faith that the New York Giants were going to win the game, and I wasn't very interested in the game. And to be completely honest with the listeners, I felt in my heart that I wanted the Patriots to beat the New York Giants. And this is something that wouldn't have made sense when the Giants played the Patriots in the Super Bowl or with Eli Manning. And the reason why I wanted the Giants eventually to get blown out in the second half is because I believe that Pat Shurmur is stunning our growth as a franchise. And I'll take my headphones off for this because I need to nail this segment down, because this could be controversial for a fan to come out and say that he almost wanted the Patriots to blow out the Giants. And I'll give you my rationale. It wasn't total Patriots homertism or rooting for the Patriots. It's not like I'm a Patriots fan, but I will tell you exactly my feelings about my New York Giants since they're my team. And I'll take off my headphones to do so. So the New York Giants, the reason I wanted the Patriots to beat the Giants is because I want Pat Shurmur to be fired as soon as possible, because after that Vikings game, after that Bills, after that Cowboys game week 1, after watching Pat Shurmur get fired from the Cleveland Browns, after watching every single press conference, this guy does not have energy. This guy lacks enthusiasm. He lacks schemes that are not innovative enough. He's not fiery enough. And his offenses are very vanilla offenses that are easy for defenses to dissect. He's not special. Doug Peterson has balls. He'll do Philly specials in the Super Bowl. He'll play to win the game. And Pat Shurmur, it was reported that Evan Ingram was healthy enough to play in this game, but yet Evan Ingram did not play in this game. It was also reported, or this was actually factual, Pat Shurmur, down 14 points in the fourth quarter on the road with 8 minutes to go, punted the football. Now let's discuss why he punted the ball. He punted the ball because he knew his team was not good enough to beat the New England Patriots that night. And he surrendered with 8 minutes left. He surrendered when he told Evan Ingram not to play. He was already thinking towards the next week. Now, a coach that punts down 14 points at the Patriots when you only have a certain amount of games in the NFL and you're 14 points away, when you're an offensive guru, when you're paid to win, when the Patriots are in the NFL and your job is to go out there and get a win, what message does it send to Daniel Jones? What message does it send to your team when he was blatantly saying that Daniel Jones, by punting down 14, you know what message it was sending? Daniel, you're not good enough to beat the Patriots. You're not ready, and I'm not going to throw the defense to the wolves here and lose by 24 points because it's going to look aesthetically less pleasing for my resume and our resume if we lose big. I want to stop the bleeding. I'm tired. It's cold. I'd rather lose by 21 than 28 points. When really, if Daniel Jones converts a first down, which, again, I can't walk on water either, so the chances are better that I would walk on liquid water than the Giants ever getting that 4th and 10. But the point is that I want to see my team have a coach that is fearless, that has big balls, that goes up and plays to win the games. The reason why Tom Coughlin achieved the ultimate level of success is because he told his New York Giants that got into a wild card situation that had nothing to play for at home, and they were playing the mighty Patriots, and really Tom Coughlin could have rested his players because Tom Coughlin could have damaged their sensitive psyches if the Patriots mollywopped the Giants. Pat Shurmur definitely would have rested his players because he's too afraid of the Giants' feelings getting hurt. He's too insecure about his own feelings and the Giants' feelings for his team to get blown out of the water. Because there's no argument that by giving the ball back to a team that rarely turns it over, that the defense is going to get a stop and then you're going to get the ball back and score twice, 2 more points. You were admitting defeat and you surrendered. That's not the only reason I don't like Pat Shurmur. Shurmur was a bad coach in Cleveland, and yes, Belichick coached in Cleveland, and there were bad coaches there. But he was with Chip Kelly. did not help out at all with that offense. His offense does not create explosive plays. He does not have interesting route concepts. He lacks route concepts. He doesn't throw the ball down the field. And you could say that at the Bucs game that they threw the ball down the field. The point is that the route concepts are not elite. It's not up to my standard. It's not Sean Payton. It's not Joe Brady. It's not Kyle Shanahan. It's not McVay. It's not Matt Nagy. There's no motion before the snap. He did not get a backup running back when Saquon Barkley got hurt. And also, Shurmur is bland. He's not loud. And also, in his press conferences with the media, he's not really specific for my liking. And on the defensive side of the ball, he decided to hire James Betcher, who is not elite. He's a slob from Arizona where nobody in the NFL would hire him. And what is the best defense to run in the NFL? I know I'm getting more loud now. What's the best defense to run in the NFL? The best defense to run in the NFL is a 4-3 defense. I watch teams on Sunday. When you're able to get to the quarterback and you're able to rush 4 guys and get to a quarterback by rushing 4, that is the ultimate sign of success. Rushing 4 guys and putting 7 guys in coverage. That's how the Giants won the Super Bowl in 2007 when they had Tuck, Osi, and Michael. It's how they won in 2011 when they had Romeo Okwara. Actually, they didn't have Okwara, but they had Justin Tuck, JPP. That's how they were able to win, because their pass rush was so good, and Tom Brady and that offense couldn't succeed because even though the back end was filled with guys that were pretty mediocre, in 2007 as well, the Giants were starting guys like Aaron Ross that only played like one other season. You know, the Giants in 2007 were not starting all-pro cornerbacks. And in 2011, they did have they didn't even have Webster. So I even forget who the secondary was in 2011 because the pass rush was so dominant, and that's why they were able to get 5 turnovers against the Green Bay Packers. So this 3-4 defense does not work. James Betcher does not work. And James Betcher inspires no confidence in the New York Giants. I'll put on my headphones for a little bit just to get synced up more with the audio, try to find a rhythm there. 13 minutes into the podcast, all about the New York Giants. Pat Shurmur, I don't trust his direction. I'm not enthused. I'm not excited to watch Shurmur football. Let's look at all the games. The Minnesota game, the New York Giants got punched, and they could have lost that game by 30. And that is a very mediocre offense. The pass rush is terrible. There is no blitzes. There is no disguises. There's no development. You have Dexter Lawrence, Marcus Golden, and Lorenzo Carter. Lorenzo Carter has not been developed at this level. Lorenzo Carter is a hit-and-miss type player. He is not a consistent superstar Pro Bowl player that I know he can be. Jabril Peppers at times is in the wrong spot. Antoine Bethea often in the wrong spot. Now, Baker is playing better, but Grant Haley is still not playing at the level that you would want. Janoris Jenkins, where is Julian Love? Where is Corey Ballantyne? Can't we get Ballantyne on the field? Can't that happen? And Grant Haley and these guys are running around, and these guys are not flying to the football. They're very hesitant to tackle, And Jackrabbit is a terrible, terrible tackler, and we're not helping him. The linebackers are a problem. I want to give credit to Ogletree for returning from injury. I think that him and Connolly can be okay in the next few years maybe, but Ogletree's also been inconsistent. This defense is very, very inconsistent. It's bad, and a lot of it should be blamed on James Betcher and this coaching staff, because you even look at the Raiders, and I've given a lot of flack to Paul Gunfer, but his defense is playing at an all-time high level for the players that he has. Seattle's defense surviving even though they don't really have any players. The personnel groups in the NFL. Even Redskins defense looks better. There are defenses out there that don't have as much talent. The Eagles defense, I know that they just got waxed. And yes, the talent is something that definitely needs to get addressed, but I'm not going to say it's all on the talent. Pat Shurmur and James Betcher are not attached at the hip. They don't know how to win games together. Not everybody is pulling in the same direction. It's not like a Shanahan and Robert Saleh. So, Pat Shurmur, I've had enough with Pat Shurmur over the years. I think Shurmur is done in New York, and he should be done by the end of this year. And if the Cardinals go in and beat Pat Shurmur, the Giants will be closer to finding their next head coach, which could be Joe Brady. It could be Kellen Moore. It could be an elite coach that can come in and help Daniel Jones coach offensive football, return the Giants to a 4-3 nasty pass rush, because the Giants are not paying a quarterback. They're not paying Saquon Barkley. They're going to have a lot of room in cap to hit. And the direction of the team right now is, if they win a couple more games and they keep Pat Shurmur, not only is their draft stock going to get worse, because then you won't get Judy or CeeDee Lamb, or you won't get Isaiah Simmons, who Isaiah Simmons is probably my favorite player in the draft, the linebacker from Clemson. But if they keep winning these games, forget about Tua, forget about the kid Chase Young from Ohio State. If you keep winning games, Shurmur will be here another year. You'll see more mediocre football. You'll see James Betcher, and you'll see, instead of 6-10, maybe Shurmur will get you to 8-8. And you'll keep hovering around 8-8 until the team will quit on you. You will waste 3 years of precious life, of precious time, watching a football team that has zero chance to win a Super Bowl championship. Pat Shurmur, if he were fired by the New York Giants, I don't think anybody would hire Pat Shurmur. He's just not a good coach. He's not good at delegating. He hasn't won at a high level. He doesn't have the camaraderie skills. He doesn't have the rah-rah personality. I'm not saying that you need it, but you better be, if you don't have the rah-rah personality, you better be damn good at delegating, and you better be damn good at your schemes. And Shurmur is not executing on those fronts really at all. His record is a 300 record all time. He sucked last year early in the season, and you could say it was Eli or whatever, but he lost to the Panthers. He lost to the Saints. Pat Shurmur last year, it was very tough watching Pat Shurmur, watching that football team play last year. It was not fun whatsoever in any capacity. All right, so he lost a lot of games last year. What was it, 5-11? And this year is more of the same. And hopefully the Cardinals can beat the Giants, and then the Giants can go to the Lions and get blown out. The team can quit on Shurmur, so then they can hire Kellen Moore. They can interview Joe Brady. They can interview Jim Leonard. And we could get a really solid coach that can come in here that fits New York, that is passionate, and that really has an expertise in either delegating skills, either personality skills, or in play calling expertise. Like a Matt Rule, who's great at delegating, who's a great CEO, who's a wonderful guy, like a John Harbaugh, or we could end up getting like a Kellen Moore or a Joe Brady, somebody that's young, that knows modern football, that knows the way football is going to, and that can help Daniel Jones and come up with modern pass concepts for the New York Giants to again gain some respectability in the league. All right, so that's a lot on the New York Giants. That is 20 minutes of time on Pat Shurmur, the dismay of Shurmur. So you guys can always fast forward in the podcast, but now let's get into our next game, okay? Sunday at 1 o'clock. Let's talk about this game. Houston Texans. What a spectacular win by Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans. It was brilliant. Deshaun Watson is an MVP caliber quarterback. He's playing at as high of a level as he's ever played. He has DeAndre Hopkins. Carlos Hyde scores a touchdown. I wasn't able to watch a lot of this game, but here's the thing about Mahomes and the Chiefs. The Chiefs roster around Mahomes is still not that great. That defense that Spagnuolo has to deal with, the personnel, they trade away a D Ford, who's an incredible asset, even though D Ford was offsides in the biggest play of Chiefs history, maybe. But still, D Ford is a sack master. He's so fast. They end up bringing in, I believe they have Chris Jones. They might have that guy from Seattle, Frank Clark. I think they do. But the pass rush is not there. The secondary is not really being taught that well. They're trying to go to a 4-3 defense, and they're figuring themselves out. And offensively, you have Tyreek Hill, but the running game is apparently not that good offensively. So let's look. I mean, I need to maybe watch this game in condensed again, but this is just Deshaun Watson. And for Kansas City, I mean, their defense hasn't really shut down any offense. Stafford had success. Lamar Jackson had late success. Their defense is very middle of the road. Now, I really trust Steve Spagnuolo, and maybe this team just needs time to gel. But this next game in Denver is certainly going to be difficult with the emergence of the Denver Broncos. But let's look at the statistics from yesterday's game. Incredible win for Bill O'Brien. Probably the biggest win Deshaun Watson has had at the NFL level. Going into Arrowhead, going to Kansas, going to Missouri, and getting a win against a team that was a play away from winning the AFC Championship, the reigning MVP in Arrowhead, a place where the Colts seldom lose. They must have used the Colts blueprint against Kansas City by limiting possession. I bet the time of possession was really good for the Houston Texans. And the Texans have some talent on defense, but Deshaun Watson, he's elevating his level up a notch, and he's now entering into the top 5 quarterbacks in the league conversation. Deshaun Watson's one of the hardest workers in football, but he's not a guy that simply plays for the check down. He's not a guy that just manages the game. Now, quarterbacks who manage the game, I love too. They can also be winners. But Deshaun Watson can extend plays like no other. His arm strength, they said out of college, this guy doesn't have the necessary velocity, or he can't throw at the necessary distances. The touch and the velocity of Deshaun Watson, he's so skilled in every regard. And his personality, he's such a competitor. He has ice water in his veins. I mean, the throw to game-winning touchdown against Alabama, you have to have ice water in his veins. Bill O'Brien, to me, and even Deshaun Watson, I think that they had little verbal spats. Bill O'Brien's I think he's a pretty good coordinator. I think he's decent at calling plays pretty good. I don't think he's great at managing the Houston Texans roster, and their play dips often. They lost to the Carolina Panthers a couple of weeks ago. He's not consistent. I think he's a volatile personality, just my opinion from what I've seen of Bill O'Brien. And I said that eventually it would blow up, but Bill O'Brien is keeping the ship tight, and Deshaun Watson is also assisting in Bill O'Brien and helping him retain this job. And now Bill O'Brien can use his offensive fortitude or his offensive success. And now he has DeAndre Hopkins. They lose Lamar Miller, but they never really had a running game anyway. They've never really prioritized that position. So let's go. I'm going to look up now this Texans and Chiefs game yesterday, and I'll get all the stats that I need from ESPN just so I could see the time of possession and everything that happened. It was a weird game, and the Chiefs right now are going through some turnover. And the fact is about Mahomes is that you can have a better year than last year. Mahomes was perfect last year. He was absolutely perfect. 50 touchdown passes, over, 4,000, 5,000 yards tossed. The guy is absolutely a once-in-a-generation quarterback, and he's not going to sustain that level of play each and every year. So the team stats. The Texans held the ball 40 minutes. Third down, 5 of 12. 192 rushing yards, 41 rushing attempts. They pounded Kansas City again. So Kansas City has issues stopping the run, even though their defensive tackles, if I look at their roster, look like they should be good. Their run support's not good. That means their linebackers are playing bad football. That means Spagnuolo needs to address this going forward because Phillip Lindsay in Denver's going to try to get to them. They do have Frank Clark. They do have Chris Jones, like I talked about. So that is peculiar, but their depth on the defensive line's not there. You have Juan Thornhill, Honey Badger, who might be an overrated signing. I think he is. I think he just benefits off of the nickname. The Chiefs right now, the direction of their franchise is that they were at the pinnacle last year. I still think with Mahomes under this contract that they're still on the rise. I'm not pushing the panic button yet, but now they're facing some reality check time. And as long as the Chiefs get into the playoffs, when Spagnuolo's defense comes around, I believe the Chiefs still will be very, very dangerous. So I'm not pushing the panic button because with Mahomes, even if Kansas City loses to, even if the Chiefs lose to the Broncos, even if they lose to Denver, what will their record be at that point? 4-3. So that is not awful. I think that they lose the Broncos game, but then they host the Packers, they host the Vikings. And they have a very, very late bye week in the season, one of the latest bye weeks. I'm not worried about Kansas City. I'm not worried about Mahomes and Reed. I trust this team. It's still an explosive offense. It's just not as dominant. But Spagnuolo is a championship defensive coordinator, and he will figure it out. Let's keep bouncing. Cardinals over the Falcons. Kyler Murray figuring it out. 3 touchdown passes, playing really, really well. Now, I don't know if Cliff Kingsbury is necessarily going to be a success. I'm not sure Vance Joseph is going to be a success. This defense still got toasted by Matt Ryan, who went 30 of 36 for 356 yards and 4 touchdown passes. So they still got toasted pretty good defensively. The Cardinals, Kyler Murray had an amazing game again. He's hanging in the pocket. He's making explosive throws on the ground. Still not that much on the ground, but they at least were trying to run it maybe more. The pass-to-run ratio needs to get better. Arizona kind of got fortunate to win this game. Now, David Johnson's been very good in the passing game. Fitzgerald had another big game. So Kyler Murray is playing at a higher level. Now, the Falcons' defense is a train wreck with Dan Quinn, and this cover 3 defense is not exactly working for Dan Quinn. It's not working at all. And this is an interesting dynamic, right, in the NFL because Dan Quinn, to me, he accomplished too much success at too early of a time in his career. Meaning that Dan Quinn got to a Super Bowl, Dan Quinn then beat the Rams and got to the second level of the playoffs. The expectation level with the talent of the roster of Freeman, of the guys like in the middle like Grady Jarrett, Vic Beasley, I think, is on that defense. Buchanan is a linebacker there. Keanu Neal was playing at a Pro Bowl level to start. The cover 3 defense was really, really good, and they were really aggressive. But now this team has really quit on Dan Quinn, and offensively you have Dirk Cutter coming in there, and he's passing the ball a lot. He's very pass-happy, and it's another failure by Thomas Dimitroff. He's not drafting the right style of offensive lineman. The offensive lineman, he used 2 picks and important draft capital to select Caleb McGarry, who's a physical left tackle, or right tackle. Is Caleb McGarry, is he fast enough to hold up when he's not playing in the Pac-12? He's been hurt a lot of the year. They also have a guy in Chris Lindstrom who's also been out of the lineup, who also hasn't been producing. I believe Alex Mack has gotten banged up. So this offensive line, Jake Matthews, this offensive line was supposed to be awesome. They didn't acquire any other running backs. Devontae Freeman has never returned from his prime years. And usually with running backs in the NFL, with Devontae Freeman, if you're not going to go out and get another running back, or it's very hard for running backs to find a resurgence later in their careers, like a Marshawn Lynch did with Seattle. Usually when a player hits that cliff, like Sean Alexander, like Peyton Hillis, usually when a player or a running back specifically hits that cliff or hits that peak and then he struggles, usually they can't recover. And Atlanta's running game has been awful. And the fact is about Atlanta's running game is that if Atlanta's running game is awful, that defense is on the field a lot. They're not getting creative. They're not using blitzes. This team is not playing hard for Dan Quinn anymore. And Dan Quinn right now is in a real downward spiral, and I'm not sure that the Falcons players are going to be patient enough with Dan Quinn to sit through this rebuild. Because the fact is with Dan Quinn is that, yes, they do have talent, right? The Falcons do have talent. It's just that with Dan Quinn, you know, the Falcons have accomplished so much success so early. Shanahan leaves. You end up paying Matt Ryan all this money where Matt Ryan really doesn't deserve all this money. He's just a mediocre quarterback at the NFL level. And now the Falcons are stuck, and defensively, I think that they have names, but I don't think that they're also that talented. And this scheme, the coaching staff is not switching from man to man. Dan Quinn is not adjusting at all. He went from Sarkisian. He then tried to go to Dirk Cutter. The defensive game plans, the best defenses in the NFL adapt. Not only do they adapt their personnel, they adapt what coverages they call. Bill Belichick's always calling different defenses. Saleh is always tweaking depending on the game. Mike Pettin will be a guy that'll tweak. Chris Richard. You have to face your opponent and be opponent specific. And the preparation is lazy from Dan Quinn. And Dan Quinn already got to a Super Bowl. He's already reached the highest of the highs in Atlanta. And that expectation level last year when all the players got injured and everything, the expectation is Super Bowl. Thomas Dimitroff and Quinn rested on their laurels. And Shanahan, yes, Shanahan's a better coach than Dan Quinn, but I don't think that Quinn is a terrible coach. I think he's a charismatic guy. I think people like him, Dan Quinn, for the most part. I think he gets along with ownership very well. It's just that these players and the personnel that he has right now, he's somehow not communicating with them, and it doesn't make sense because he's a nice enough guy, but it's also Matt Ryan. I don't think Matt Ryan is Dan Quinn's preferred quarterback, and Dan Quinn also is not understanding the offense. I think Quinn's a very good defensive coordinator. I think he'll get another opportunity maybe to be a head coach. When you go to a Super Bowl, when you win 3 playoff games in 2 years, you're doing something right. Dan Quinn is not like Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett has had 10 years. Jason Garrett's never even made an NFC title game. Jason Garrett misses the playoffs maybe 6 out of 10 years. Most of the years, Jason Garrett will choke, down the stretch run of the season with Tony Romo, and he'll choke often. Dan Quinn at least has backed up the Bills. Dan Quinn at least with Sark was able to go into LA and was able to play really good defense against the Rams and beat them 2 years ago. He was able to go to Philly and got within a touchdown pass, and if he had Matt Ryan playing better, the Falcons would have won that game. So Dan Quinn has accomplished a lot, But right now, it looks like they're to the point of no return unless they fight. Maybe another draft class, maybe a drastic trade. I think if I were the Eagles, though, I'd look at Bryce Alford or I'd look at Isaiah Oliver or some of these cornerbacks, and I would give Atlanta maybe a first-round pick for some of these guys because you could try to get players off of Atlanta. They are in free fall mode, and I guess Quinn, I don't think he's going to survive because he got off to too high. I think he experienced success too fast, whereas when you look at Kyle Shanahan, the trajectory has been very, very healthy. Mild expectations, not having the quarterback, that he wanted with Hoyer or whatever. So the expectations in the beginning were not that great. But then Kyle Shanahan went, and Kyle Shanahan after that went, and Shanahan was able to healthfully rise the program at the level which he wanted, or Shanahan was able to take San Francisco and rise it because it's not like Shanahan got to a Super Bowl very fast. It's not like the expectations were out of whack immediately. Dan Quinn and Kirby Smart are pretty similar. Kirby Smart got to a national championship. Now Georgia Bulldog fans expect Kirby to win the East, to win to compete for the SEC title, and to try to get to a national championship. But Kyle Shanahan had years where the expectations before this year were very mild, and the team could focus, and the team could believe in the process. And you had a new quarterback. You had new free agents like Richard Sherman. The Niners were excited to work with each other. They had everything to gain and nothing to lose. And really, the Falcons, instead of looking at their franchise, instead of Dan Quinn being introspective, being a CEO and analyzing how this defense could even retain at that level, he kept the same players, he kept the same formula, and it ended up biting him in the ass because he didn't adjust. He gave Matt Ryan all that money. He wasn't creative. He hasn't hired good offensive coordinators. The offensive line scouting has been abysmal. The scouting on both the defensive and the offensive lines has been really poor, and the personalities that Quinn has on defense are not believing in his structure. He's not getting players that play his specific zone, or he's not structuring the team to play his style. Or he's not adapting to their style, the players' talents of playing man-to-man. Maybe they're man-to-man corners and he just won't do it. He's stubborn. Overall, it's just sad. He's accomplished a lot, but there's no real upward trajectory anymore with Dan Quinn, and it's really Matt Ryan's fault too. I think a coach that goes into this contract with Matt Ryan making $33 million a year, I don't think Matt Ryan is going to carry that team to the playoffs unless it's somehow a brilliant coordinator. I know that you have weapons, but I don't think Matt Ryan is all that good. And what do weapons get you? Mediocrity. Look at Minnesota. Look at the Cleveland Browns. What do good wide receiver weapons get you? They get you fantasy points. Look at Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but it comes down to the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. That's why the Carolina Panthers might just be a Super Bowl team, because the Carolina Panthers, I believe they're going to go deep into the playoffs this year if they stay healthy. Gerald McCoy got 2 sacks. Vernon Butler got 2 sacks. That 4-3 defense that Ron Rivera is calling with Eric Washington is working at such a high level right now. Luke Kuechly, Shaq Thompson, James Bradbury is playing at an exceptional level. He's playing unbelievable. Ross Cockrell, they got this guy playing at a level. I think he's a journeyman in this league, and he's playing fantastic. So Riverboat Ron decided to go full-on defense, and they've been tremendous. They signed Brian Burns. They got Gerald McCoy, so they invested in their defensive line, and they've developed. Offensive line, they got Matt Paradas as a center from Denver. They're paying him $10 million. Christian McCaffrey now with Kyle Allen. Kyle Allen was exactly what the Panthers needed. A low-maintenance quarterback, an underdog quarterback. Cam Newton was really struggling. He was very distracting. And Kyle Allen has come in and he really has breathed life into these Panthers, and these Panthers have won 4 straight games, and their defense has been revving up. That's what it's all about in football. It's all about momentum. It's all about revving up. Look at the Minnesota Golden Gophers. They barely beat Fresno State to start the year. They could have very easily lost to Georgia Southern. They could have easily lost their opening game to the South Dakota State Jackrabbits of the Missouri Valley Conference. But you know what Minnesota did? They found ways to win against Fresno State, against those Group of 5 and Division 1A football teams. And now they're out here crushing Nebraska, crushing Illinois, because when you win, it's a snowball effect of stacking wins. And when you keep stacking wins, that's when special things happen. You know why the Oakland Raiders went to London, were happy? You know why they played out of their minds across the pond and took it to the Chicago Bears and Chase Daniel? It's because the week prior, they got a huge momentum win against the Indianapolis Colts. Momentum breeds great play. It also adds into the way that you practice. So the Lions beat the Eagles. The Lions then, non-coincidentally, have an amazing practice, and they're plays away from beating the Chiefs before the Chiefs were even thought to be vulnerable in the first place. And that's why with this bye week, I expect the Lions to play really well. It's all about morale. So let's analyze the morale now. We have 20 more minutes on this show for the NFL podcast. Let's start analyzing the morale. Arizona, I like where they're headed, but Vance Joseph, I'm not that big of a fan of. The Texans, I think the Texans can win that division. But against the Colts, it will be interesting to see if the Texans can keep it going. The Colts are feeling great. They just had a bye week. Their defense could ball out. That game is a really tough game to predict. Eagles and Cowboys. Eagles have no secondary players, but Doug Peterson has this locker room tight. He guaranteed a victory against the Cowboys. Carson Wentz is okay. I don't know if Carson Wentz is necessarily elite. I think he holds on to the ball too much. He can't extend a play like Deshaun Watson. His release is too slow. And also, there's no explosive plays in the passing game. They're really missing Nelson Aguilar. They're missing Deshaun Jackson. There's no downfield throws. And also when they're running the football, they don't stick to the run. There's too many throws. Even when the Eagles are down, the run-pass ratio isn't that good. And even though they're hitting Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, which is fine, they're not going down the field on one-on-one matchups. When's the last time you've seen Alshon Jeffrey catch a pass over 20 yards in the air? I'm not talking about Yak. It hasn't happened. With Nick Foles, Alshon Jeffrey will be streaking down the field and getting go balls all the time. Carson Wentz is not throwing the ball in the air. He's not trusting his wide receivers deep. This offense doesn't have explosive plays in the passing game, and that is a huge, huge problem. However, with the Dallas Cowboys, their problem is squarely on Jason Garrett because Kellen Moore is a young offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore needs space to operate. Kellen Moore needs an opportunity to be the guy. He needs an opportunity to fail. Failing is different than fail. And as a 31-year-old offensive coordinator going through your first loop and calling plays, you're going to have ups and downs. Nobody is perfect. Kellen Moore had a great 3 weeks, but I really think Jason Garrett during the latter course of these games is still having influence over Kellen Moore's decisions, and he is also blocking, or we could call the C block, which we'll try not to use that word on this podcast, and that's what he's doing to Kellen Moore, and Kellen Moore can't get in a rhythm. Chris Richard is a leader, Chris Richard is an alpha male, and Chris Richard would breathe life into the Cowboys as the interim coach, and he would be the head coach. The players love him, the players respect him, and Jason Garrett is a figurehead. They're deciding that Jason Garrett is all talk with no substance, that he is just basically a politician that he's up there just clapping, saying words that don't really mean a whole lot. And that's what Jason Garrett is doing for the Dallas Cowboys. So if I were the Cowboys, I'd get rid of Garrett. And if I were a Cowboy fan, I'd actually want the Eagles to beat Jason Garrett, because then there's a bye week and there'll be 14 days of deafening fire Jason Garrett voices going into Jerry Jones's head. And then maybe Jerry Jones will be so pressured from the public perception that maybe it boils over and you see change. But if you beat the Eagles, you're going to then be stuck with Jason Garrett. You might be lucky to go 10-6. You might make the playoffs as a wild card or you might win a weak NFC East, but then you're not going to beat the 49ers. You're not going to go beat the Saints. You're not going to do that in the playoffs. I doubt it. Who else is in the NFC? Boy, the North. I mean, the Packers can beat the Cowboys. They've already done it. Vikings, I'd put beating the Cowboys, Detroit, and Chicago. So Minnesota with a big win yesterday. Kirk Cousins, again, 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. He is going to be a good quarterback. He's not going to be an elite quarterback, but he's going to be good. And maybe, just maybe, this defense can come along and help him out, get him deep into the playoffs. The perception can be better. The thing I like from Kevin Stefanski was aggressive play calling. I loved on first down how they didn't just run the ball. They went play action fake over the top. They were really aggressive. They went after the Eagles, and John DeFilippo never called a game like Kevin Stefanski did yesterday. John DeFilippo never called a game quite to the level that Kevin Stefanski did yesterday. Kevin Stefanski will be a head coach in this league very soon. He was the finalist for the Cleveland Browns job. Now about the Cleveland Browns. We now have 15 minutes left in the podcast. If you want to sponsor my podcast, hit me up, rover-sports@gmail.com. I will give you guys shout out. I will give you guys advertising, and the people who listen will use the promo codes that you offer, or we will purchase what you are selling. As I put the headphones back on, we were talking about the Cleveland Browns. Freddie Kitchens was put in a really tough situation being the head coach of this football team because Freddie Kitchens, he's not really ready to be a head football coach in this league. He's a really good play caller. And he wasn't ready for the media storm of Odell Beckham, of all of America watching the Cleveland Browns. It wasn't a healthy career move. It was too much too soon for Freddie Kitchens. Too much responsibility. It's like you are a guy. Here's a weird analogy. It's like you're a guy and you date like decent looking girls, but then suddenly you go out with this really, really hot girl and you're like, oh my gosh, this is wild. And then you get married within a week, and then you don't know how to handle everything about marriage or everything about how the expectations of maybe how pretty this girl is. And that's what Freddie Kitchens is kind of like. Freddie Kitchens is just unable. He's unable to use timeouts. He doesn't know time management. He doesn't have the guts to talk to John Dorsey. And also for him getting the ball to Odell Beckham, it's such a hindrance because you have to get the ball to Odell Beckham Jr. It's a chore. It's an errand. It's annoying. You have to, he's a constant gnat in your head saying, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. He's subtweeting. You don't know when he's going to go off to the media and insult you. There's all passive aggressiveness. This team has no culture, no locker room. They don't believe in Freddie Kitchens, and the fan base doesn't either. They're not giving him an opportunity, even though this guy is a very good play caller. Steve Wilkes is not a powerful figure as a defensive coordinator. It's too much for Freddie Kitchens. He shouldn't have had to endure Odell Beckham. He should have had Greg Williams still there. He was perfect in his role as offensive coordinator. The fact is, when you bring in Beckham, you bring in Kareem Hunt, you bring in all these expectations and distractions, expectations kill you. Look at Mike Tomlin. When he had Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and missed the playoffs, the sky was falling in Pittsburgh. But then Big Ben gets hurt. Then Le'Veon and Antonio Brown leave, and then suddenly everybody's like, there's so many injuries. The Steelers now have zero chance of succeeding. But Mike Tomlin, then he rose up and he played the us against the world card. The old Ducky Hodges. Ducky Hodges, la, 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 la. So then Ducky Hodges comes in there, and now Mike Tomlin is the hero. He's the coach that's getting everything out of his defense and his players. They get a Minkah Fitzpatrick, and now they're getting back to the grit that Steelers football is all about. And he's had a resurgence because he's been forced to. There's been new blood with the quarterback situation. Ron Rivera and Mike Tomlin, both dead man walking, both 0-2. They happen to get quarterback changes from the gods. Big Ben leaves. In comes Rudolph and Devlin Ducky, Rubber Ducky Hodges. In comes Kyle Allen. In comes expectations out the window. Let's go, Ron. Let's play defense now. And these defensive coaches have embraced their role. They've had rebirths in their franchise. Tomlin doing an amazing job off of a heartbreaking loss to the Baltimore Ravens. Mike Tomlin goes out on Sunday night all the way across the country. They have an amazing week of practice. They're 1-4. They've lost to the Ravens in the division. 1-4, heartbreaking loss. 2 quarterbacks out. Every reason to quit. Their defense gets a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Devin Bush gets an interception. Sutton plays amazingly well. TJ Watt. This defense is firing. Artie Burns plays a really good game. Minkah Fitzpatrick. There's good players on this Steelers defense, and I'm sure I'm missing guys, and their front four is ferocious. Front four is ferocious. This Steelers team can win the AFC North. I mean, let's look at their dang schedule, shall we? I mean, Mike Tomlin, this is one of the great coaching jobs. And Mike Tomlin, he's kind of like Andy Roddick. He's like Karl Malone and John Stockton. He went up against Bill Belichick. Okay? It's just like the Michael Jordan of coaching. You went up against Brady and Belichick. It's not too much harm that you keep making the conference finals. Mike Tomlin has beaten Andy Reid in the big games. Mike Tomlin has beaten everybody from the AFC South. He's beaten everybody else in the AFC. They've constantly been the second best team. They've beaten the Patriots during the regular season. They had the Jesse James catch thing happen to them. Another call going for the Patriots. Mike Tomlin has had a rebirth in Pittsburgh, and he's doing an amazing job coaching. I love the way this defense plays. They're rallying around Mason. They're rallying around Ducky Hodges. Le'Veon's gone. It's us against the world mentality. They now enter into a bye week. The Steelers, I'm going to say it right now. Let's do it. I am picking the Pittsburgh Steelers of October 14th of 2019. I'm picking them to win the AFC North title. I might put down $15 later, get those great odds, get those monster odds. Maybe I could get so much good odds that I can buy myself a pair of black khaki pants or a pair of Jordans when I'm done, if the Steelers can surprise me. Surprise me. I had fun watching that game. The Chargers, they should have stayed in San Diego. They have no character. Anthony Lynn, overrated coach. Phillip Rivers is old, stale team. They've had their chances. They're like Dan Quinn. They're in free fall mode right now, the Chargers. They've had their opportunities. They're done. They had their chance against the Patriots. The Patriots sent them back to the Middle Ages. Phillip Rivers will never win, has a lollipop, loopy release, high ball city. Defense can run under and just intercept him. As a cornerback, I'd love playing Phillip Rivers. Even in flag football, Phillip Rivers will probably throw interceptions. That's what he does. Doesn't have a strong arm. Can't make the big boy throws. An efficient passer, yes. Can be accurate, yes, with given time, but he's getting older and older. He's always been a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. He's exactly like Donovan McNabb with a little more longevity. Great player, great personality for the game. Had a very successful career. If he got to a Super Bowl, he'd maybe be a Hall of Famer. If he plays maybe 3 more years, maybe Hall of Famer. Close. I don't like keeping guys out of the Hall of Fame, but it's close. I would probably say it's close. Probably say no. Especially when you play against the Raiders, the Chiefs, and the Broncos. Not historically amazing. Especially the Raiders have been terrible. The Chiefs during his career are very up and down. Not that good before Andy Reid got there. And Denver has been very inconsistent as well. It's not like Eli, who had to play against Cowboys, Eagles, Redskins, cold weather, the whole 9. Steelers schedule. Off topic. Pittsburgh Steelers schedule. We might go over this hour. We're having so much fun today. They play the Dolphins, so it doesn't matter if the Duckman or if Mason's out. I think Mason's going to get the start. Duckman is one of my favorite players to watch. Just a story from Sanford, the fact that he's a champion duck caller, the fact that people can bring duck calls maybe to a game, the fact that he's an undrafted kid, he's 6'1", he's undersized. Everything about Ducky Hodges, the story is just absolutely glorious. It's fantastic. I love everything about it. I want Ducky to play, but Mason Rudolph is a second-round pick, and it would stunt Mason's development if Mason didn't get to play. And Mason's 6'4", just has just as big of an arm. Now, I don't think Mason's arm is elite, and he hasn't even played that well. But again, they're asking these young kids to do pretty much the same similar thing. There's just no chance Ducky's going to keep playing because they've invested in Mason Rudolph to be the quarterback of the future, and they cut Duck Hodges. So it is sad, but at the same time, Duck is there. Duck is having his moment in the sun. Ducky Hodges, la 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 la. Ducky Hodges, da da. So Dolphins at home. Steelers play the Colts at home. I think the Steelers can get to Brissett and win. Their pass rush is just so good. Then they play the Rams at home. I think that's another W with Jared Goff playing the way he's playing. I think the Steelers, they're home for a month. They have a bye week and they're home for a month. You know how much that does to morale and team chemistry. That's spectacular. It'll allow Mason Rudolph to get into a rhythm. Or whoever's playing it'll probably be Rudolph. Then they go to the Cleveland Browns. Very close trip for them. The Browns are probably going to be out of contention at that time. The Browns are in full tank mode. The Steelers will then take that over. Steelers then play the Bengals. Then they host the Browns. Then they go to Arizona and play the Bills at home. These are all winnable games. I'm picking the Steelers to win this division. They might even get to 10-6. They might go the 8-2 over the last few weeks of the season. And they play the Ravens the last week. They play the Jets. Easiest schedule. I'm putting that money down. I think the Steelers hit this ride. I think it's going to be beautiful for Mike Tomlin. Gets Coach of the Year. And all the reports of Tomlin going to Washington, they all will wash out of the door because the Steelers, with this schedule, with this defense, Steelers should have beaten the Ravens. Steelers came close to beating Seattle. First week was a train wreck. Steelers have had a tough go. 49ers game, that's one of the best teams in all of football with Kyle Shanahan, an amazing defense. Nearly won that. The defense again with Minka. Minka is just so fast as a safety. So instinctive. Such a fun player to watch. Minka Fitzpatrick is just a really fun player to watch. So this Steelers team with Mike Tomlin, again, it's different than Dan Quinn because Tomlin is facing adversity. He doesn't have that evil E word of expectations on him, and he's out there just hanging out with the guys, being the defensive coordinator, being the legend that he is, and with no expectations, there's no pressure. most people packed up on the season, it's all upside for Tomlin. There's no worry of failure, where last year he was walking on eggshells with the Le'Veon situation. And I could tell that the Melvin Gordon situation played a huge factor when your best player on offense, maybe one of your best because Keenan Allen's good, but one of your best players on offense holding out, that definitely has an impact in the locker room. And that's what sports are all about. It's the locker room, the field, the morale. There is a reason why Sam Darnold won yesterday. It's because of the morale of getting him back, of him overcoming the adversity, of the wide receivers getting their brother back, as Robbie Anderson said, as Le'Veon Bell stated. Getting the starting quarterback back, and then the defense, they can have a chance to win because the offense can put up points. And that's a residual effect. The practices are better. And that's why the Jets and Patriots line is only 10 points right now on Monday night, because the Jets defense is going to be juiced to play Tom Brady. Jamal Adams is going to have an amazing week of practice. Quinnen Williams should be awesome. That Leonard Williams might be able to fend off the trade talk. Greg Williams is going to dial up blitzes for Tom Brady. And that the Jets fans at MetLife Stadium are going to go absolutely nuts. So it's a possibility that the Jets can continue this. But unfortunately, I don't trust Adam Gase. Sam Darnold's arm is still weak. I don't love him as a prospect. He really has to prove me wrong. I've said Sam Darnold would be a bust and he wouldn't be good. Now, he has gotten hurt a lot in the last few years. He had a good game yesterday. He had a bad game week 1. He's still getting over an enlarged spleen. So I want to give Sam Darnold a lot of credit for persevering through that. Let's go back to the games yesterday. Saints beating the Jaguars. Gardner Minshew, Jalen Ramsey situation, Doug Marrone, likely, I think it's a lock that he gets fired now because the Texans are balling. The Colts are finding their identity with a huge win over the Kansas City Chiefs. The Tennessee Titans of Marcus Mariota and Tannehill. Let's talk about that. See, there's teams that I haven't even gotten to that I could continue to talk about here as we go over the hour mark and as the clouds or as the sun kind of sets in the east here as we are inside. But we are continuing this podcast for y'all. And I'll talk for Ryan. I'll talk about the Titans for about 5 minutes. And then we will continue this podcast maybe some other time. But this has been really, really fun. It's been an hour. I'm going to actually continue. So, Marcus Mariota, all right? So, Mariota and Tannehill. What are my opinions on Mariota? One, he cannot hit an out route. So his arm strength is not good. But he does have qualities that I like. He's a great teammate. He processes defenses. I think he's a good processor. He has a very quick release, and he's very athletic and nimble. Now, he's not good at pocket awareness, meaning he gets sacked a lot. He's not strong in the pocket. Like Gardner Minshew might not be as fast as Marcus, but Gardner Minshew knows where the rush is coming from. Marcus has trouble recognizing the rush. Marcus's release is very quick. He needs to get the ball out of his hands fast. In defense of Mariota, his offensive lineman Lewan is overpaid. His offensive lineman Lewan got suspended irresponsibly. Jack Conklin is overrated. Their center Ben Jones and Saffold, they're paying a lot of money. It's one of the highest paid offensive lines in the sport, but yet they're not doing a great job protecting him. The running game hasn't really been great either, and Arthur Smith has never been an offensive coordinator really at any level, and especially at the NFL level at least. So you went from Matt LaFleur, who is now having a lot of success in Green Bay, you're now on another offensive coordinator. You go from the Stone Age of coaching with Mike Mularkey, and now you go to LaFleur, and now you're back to Arthur Smith. So you don't really know your identity as a football team. Delaney Walker is hurt. Corey Davis is in and out of the lineup. Mariota, it was good that he got benched yesterday because now Mariota can see that the job is not going to be guaranteed to him. However, Mariota is not good against the blitz. He might need a change out of Tennessee. He needs to go to a team. Mariota, I think, is 6'4", can release the ball quickly, and can diagnose coverages. I believe he can play in this league. Now, Mariota cannot throw the ball with velocity, and that's a problem. Mariota, with his lack of arm strength, needs to be decisive. Kirk Cousins was decisive yesterday. The coaching for Kyle Allen with North and Scott Turner, and the coaching for Kirk Cousins from Kevin Stefanski was decisive, and Arthur Smith is not decisive. The Tennessee Titans should have kept Matt LaFleur because offensively, it's easier to find, well, in football, it's easier to find a defensive coach than it is to find Mike Vrabel and to find it's easier to find a defensive coach or a defensive coordinator than it is to find an elite offensive coordinator. You're seeing that happen with Dan Quinn when Kyle Shanahan left. You're seeing Frank Reich leave the Eagles and them struggle a little bit in the running game because some coaches are brilliant. Offensive coaches can be brilliant. Really good ones or really good coordinators. That's why Shane Waldron, Kellen Moore, they're all going to leave. Kevin Stefanski, definitely bouncing. Anybody who has a successful offense, Byron Leftwich, going to bounce very soon. All these guys are going to get jobs soon. That's the way that the NFL works. But at the same time, if you have a defensive guy and then you decide to make a lazy in-program hire, just like Mike Vrabel made a lazy hire by hiring Arthur Smith, and Kirby Smart made a lazy hire hiring James Coley, both in-house guys and both lame hires. Where Ed Orgeron, who is not a guru on offense, he's more of a guru on the defensive line, he goes out there and hires a Joe Brady rock star. As a CEO, Mike Vrabel needs to make decisions with John Robinson that will help the offense, but Vrabel is just a defensive guy, and he's very hands-off on the offense. And the offense is not sophisticated. The play calling isn't dynamic, and Mariota's confidence has wavered completely. And the team loves Marcus Mariota, and also bringing in Ryan Tannehill was absolutely a shot to Mariota, that Mariota's times in Tennessee were numbered. And that ended up backfiring because Mariota ended up playing so poorly under the circumstances of Tannehill. And then Mariota got really mad at the coaching staff, probably internally, for bringing in a Ryan Tannehill. So the progression of Mariota was completely destroyed. The offensive line is terrible. And I believe that the Mariota ship is going to sail. His time in Tennessee and Nashville, it is just soured over with the fans. Once a great potential guy has just crumbled. Inconsistency, not good arm strength, but a guy that can play in this league. When you watch Kyle Allen play in this league, when you watch Minshew, when you watch Devlin Hodges win, Mariota fits in, has a good release, is tall, can be accurate, great leader, smart, competitive. Things you want in a quarterback, but just can't take downfield shots and is too hesitant. And a quarterback playing hesitant is not good. So it's a combination of both Mariota maybe lacking the skill to throw the ball down the field because he never attempts explosive plays anymore. It's the offensive line maybe not defending for Marcus. It's a bunch of things. Mariota's not a perfect talent, but he's really been let down by this Titans coaching staff. And Mike Vrabel deciding to trot out a kicker that missed his last 5 kicks from 54 yards down by 7 points with 4 minutes left is idiotic. Mike Vrabel up 14 points, not kicking a field goal to extend to a 3-possession game against the Falcons is idiotic in-game mismanagement decisions. And Vrabel looks like he's over his head right now. And this team is turning. And the decision to put Tannehill in, Delaney Walker already getting pissed off at the decision. So Vrabel's going to leave. Marcus Mariota has no time left in Tennessee. Tennessee might go out there. They might try to get a Jacob Eason, a Herbert. Maybe they look at Joe Burrow and think that Joe Burrow can be, can hang in the pocket even though this league is not a league for strict pocket passers anymore. Can Joe Burrow find holes in the zone? Can Joe Burrow throw the ball adequately at the NFL level? Can Joe Burrow make difficult NFL throws? I don't know. I wouldn't bank on it because his receivers do all the work for him. So I don't know. There's only one surefire great quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa. There's another quarterback that's going to be a good quarterback in Justin Herbert. There's a pretty average NFL quarterback in Jacob Eason that's going to make wow throws but is also going to lose you games. And then Joe Burrow can be absolutely awful, or Joe Burrow can be a good quarterback like a Herbert. Not an outstanding quarterback, but I'm more leaning towards he's not going to be that good because he can't escape a pocket. He never gets pressured. I don't think that Burrow is going to be very good at the NFL level. So those are just my thoughts on Joe Burrow in the college game. But as the sun sets right now, the main takeaways from yesterday are that Kirk Cousins and the Vikings look back on track. Stephon Diggs' wild card team. Kyler Murray finding his stride in the NFL. Pat Shurmur needs to go. Dan Quinn and Jason Garrett are also gone. Fitzpatrick and Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen's days are numbered. Josh Rosen couldn't hold the job down, and the Dolphins probably tanked on that 2-point try. So that's where we are at the NFL. That's the trajectory. The Panthers' trajectory. Gerald McCoy, Vernon Butler. This defense is great. Kyle Allen, the infusion of him is something that has been wonderful for Carolina. They can maybe I think they can beat the Saints in this division. I think we're going to have the Panthers, the 49ers. It's tough to say the Cowboys right now with Jason Garrett. I've said the Cowboys all year. I'm leaning Eagles, getting that 4th playoff seed. And then in the NFC North, we're also going to have a very weak division winner, like a 10-6. I'm leaning either between Detroit or the Minnesota Vikings, and we're going to learn so much tonight with this Detroit Lions-Minnesota Vikings game. It's coming up in about 2 hours' time. It is going to be absolutely spectacular. I will do a college football podcast. Davey comes back tomorrow for our regular podcast, and we got some film reviews that are going to be coming up tomorrow. So it's been a long podcast, but I hope you guys have enjoyed my opinions that I've given today. Doing a long solo podcast, and when you do a long solo podcast, not only do you find out a lot about yourself, you also find out that sugar can be a magical thing, even though it'll make you fat. Sugar gives me energy. It helps me when I get 8 hours of sleep from about 4 a.m. to about 2 a.m. My Benadryl causes my colds, but sugar can be a magical thing. It can make you fat, can give you heartburn, can definitely cause you to be upset after you do a podcast. But when you're doing an hour, sometimes you need a little boost. And sugar is artificial as heck, and it makes you fat. But at the same time, maybe it can make your brain get kind of riled up. It can make you a little more angry, and it can make you a little bit edgier. So now I'm just hitting the stride of the podcast. But again, we're an hour and 15 minutes deep into this thing, and it's been a wonderful time with you guys. Leave your thoughts on teams that I'm not talking about. The Bengals. The Ravens are an all right team, although I think Seattle can beat the Ravens. I don't think Seattle or the Ravens are that good. We'll talk about the 49ers in depth, how Kyle Shanahan had the perfect mix, how Jimmy Garoppolo, how getting hurt last year might have been the best thing because you got you a Nick Bosa, or a Joey Bosa. No, it's Nick, sorry. All of that. We're going to recap Lions tonight, Lions and Packers. We'll review some film. Quarterback breakdown of Garoppolo coming out tomorrow. All that and more. Rover Sports. Thank you, guys. We will have special guests on the podcast coming up very soon. God bless and have a wonderful rest of your Monday night. Enjoy Monday Night Football, guys, and take care.